All right, good morning. Thank you everybody for being here. My name's Captain Burr, Stephen Burr, Captain here with Battlefield. I've been in the fire service now for about 15 years. It's actually 15 years this year. Through that time, I've spent some time as a volunteer, firefighter, driver, and now a captain. I've been with Battlefield for the last 8 years, I think, 7 or 8 years. Got a little bit of experience in the driving role, so I'm not just standing up here making this stuff up. I've got a little bit of experience in it. A couple housekeeping items before we get started with the class. Restrooms are out the doors to the left, coffee out the door to the right. Exits are the far end, and then just out this door to the right as well. In the event of any inclement weather, tornadoes, hurricanes, whatever Missouri decides to throw at us, we'll go across the parking lot, Station 1. Bunk room over there is the designated storm shelter. In the event of a fire, please report to your apparatus and start getting geared up. We will get a PAR from the company officers and then come back in and put the fire out. I think that pretty well covers all of that. Again, this morning we're going to be talking about stuff the DO can do. We'll be discussing basically everything that the DO can be doing that isn't pumping the truck. As a DO, I've seen it several times. I'm guilty of it. Get on a fire, start pumping the truck, and you spend the entire time with your back towards the fire, just staring at gauges. Whenever I was coming up through the driver position and actually learning how to drive, I was basically taught that your first 5 or 10 minutes on a scene as a driver, you're working. The rest of the time, you aren't doing anything. And that's not really a good use of our resources on scene. For an example, just to tell you a quick story on this, my first fire I pumped, I spent about the first 10 minutes working, spent the rest of the time sitting in the cab of the truck watching YouTube videos on my phone. That was just the mindset with the department I was on. Drivers didn't do anything. You were with your truck. I knew I could listen to my truck and know if the pump was doing what it needed to do. We're not really doing that anymore. We don't have the resources on scene. We don't have the staffing on scene. So we're actually making use of everybody on scene. And this is basically what this class is over, is how to be an effective active member of the fire ground. So to start off, just out of curiosity, has anybody ever actually been on a fire where you thought to yourself, there are too many firefighters here. We just have way too much staffing. I've never been on that fire. I've never been on the scene where we're like, yeah, there's just too many firemen here. Staffing is always an issue. Constantly short-staffed. Never have too many firefighters on scene. So how can we fix this? How can we fix this staffing shortage? One of the ways that we can fix it is through force multipliers. And basically what a force multiplier is it's anything or anyone on scene or anyone or anything that allows a force to get more accomplished than they would without it. And the driver operator can be an effective force multiplier. That first due DO, there's a lot that they can do to help make the scene progress, help make the scene safer, and just overall help out with the operations of the scene. Objectives that we're going to cover today. By the end of this, you should be able to name the 3 most common hostile fire events for residential fires. You'll be able to determine which size hose line to use as a backup line for a variety of fire scenarios. Be able to predict which tools could be required for a RIT in a variety of mayday situations. You'll be able to demonstrate setting up proper scene lighting using the equipment found on your signed apparatus. And you'll be able to name three of the times that ground ladders should be deployed on residential structure fires. Some of this sounds like, obvious DO stuff, some of it doesn't. We'll go through it and, kind of show you how it can all be that first due DO. A couple other things that we'll discuss today: freelancing versus independent tactical operations. There's a difference, and we'll get into that. The DO acting as a safety officer or acting as an assistant safety officer, the DO and RIT operations, DO and overall scene safety, and then at the end we'll tie it all together with how can we implement all the stuff that we're going to discuss today. Again, whenever we're going through this, feel free to ask any questions. If you have anything, just raise your hand and ask. So, getting into freelancing versus the independent tactical decisions. Obviously, we don't freelance on fire scenes. It's bad. The stuff that we're going to teach you today, or the stuff that I'm going to discuss with you today, to some it may sound like freelancing, and it's not. It's making independent tactical decisions as a driver operator, as a first due DO. There are things you can do on the fire ground without getting permission to do, without notifying command that you're doing, and it's not freelancing. Nothing in this class should be considered permission to freelance. I cannot stress that enough. Everything that we're going to cover is considered independent tactical decisions, and they can be conducted by a single firefighter on the exterior of the structure without receiving specific orders to do so. And really the difference comes down to training. You have to train on this as an individual, you have to train on this as a crew, and you have to train on this as a shift so that everybody has an idea of what you as a DO are going to do on a fire ground. If you start doing stuff and nobody has a clue what you're doing and why you're doing it, that's freelancing. Well, if you've trained on this prior to, and it's expected of you, and the incident commander, whether it be your captain, your company officer, your battalion chief, one of the deputy chiefs, or the fire chief, they're on scene and working as the incident commander, and you've trained on this, and they know to expect that you're going to throw ground ladders. They know to expect that you're going to set up a vent fan. They know to expect that you're going to do something. That's not freelancing. That's you as a driver making tactical decisions on your own that they can anticipate and they can expect because we've trained on it. So, when this is all said and done, get out with your crews, get out with your shift, and train on these ideas. Diving into the first objective. First, any questions on freelancing versus independent tactical decisions? Okay. Getting into the first objective, students shall name the three most common hostile fire events found during residential structures fires, or the three that we more commonly experience. To start off with that, we're going to talk about scene safety. Scene safety is everybody's responsibility. Everyone on the fire ground, from the newest firefighter all the way up to the fire chief, scene safety is your responsibility. You got to look out for yourselves, got to look out for each other. The DO, that first arriving DO, you're in a prime position to influence the overall scene safety and the overall operations of the scene. NFPA 1521, Chapter 5 describes one of the roles of the incident safety officer as the ability to apply knowledge of fire behavior and fire dynamics. Every single one of us received training on fire behavior and fire dynamics during our Fire 1 and 2 class, correct? We've all had this training already. So we have the training. If you're in that DO position, guess what? You have the training to be able to fill one of the roles of the incident safety officer. So you can act as an additional or an assistant incident safety officer. You can even act as the primary incident safety officer until the resources get on scene to allow us to designate a separate one. You have the knowledge, just apply it. The key thing though is this cannot be accomplished with your back towards the fire. This can't be accomplished by you just staring at your pump panel the entire fire, or, as I mentioned earlier, getting in the cab of the truck and watching YouTube videos for 3.5 hours because you don't have a job once your pump's set. You can't do that. You need to turn around, be actively engaged in the fire, be watching what's going on, and actually be a valuable member of the scene. So we have the fire behavior knowledge, we have the fire dynamics knowledge, so what are we worried about? What are some of our concerns whenever I'm talking about hostile fire events? Well, any of these up here on the screen can be considered a hostile fire event. Hostile fire event is really anything that the fire does that can injure or kill us. Any of the bad stuff that happens in the fire, the flashovers, the backdrafts, vent point ignition, smoke explosions, rapid fire spread, all of those could be considered hostile fire events. Depending on which curriculum you read will depend on what the definition of each of those are, but for us, generally, we all know what a flashover is, we all know what a backdraft is, we all know what vent point ignition is, so on. So whenever I use these terms, I'm using here locally within our organization what these mean. Of these, the three most common that we find in a residential fire, anybody want to take a guess what the three most common are that we find in residential fire?
Flashover.
Okay, flashover is one of them. Vent point ignition. What's that? Rapid fire spread. Yep. Three most common that we find in residential fires are flashover, vent point ignition, and rapid fire spread. As the DO, you can watch for the warning signs of these, because there are warning signs for all of these. And the way you get to those warning signs is through reading the smoke. Anybody in here taking Dave Dotson's The Art of Reading Smoke? One? Okay. All right. It's a great class. I highly encourage that you take it. Through that, he teaches the four main things you're looking for, really the four things you're looking for whenever you're reading smoke, is volume, velocity, density, and color. By looking at those four things, you can tell a lot about what the fire is doing, where it's at, and what it's going to do without ever even seeing flames. You can have a good idea of what's going on with the fire without ever actually seeing visible flames with those four. Volume, how much smoke is there? That's what you're looking for. It's how much smoke is there. Smoke is fuel, right? So high volumes of smoke can indicate a high fuel load. If smoke is fuel, the more smoke you have, the more fuel load you have. Obviously, the more fuel load, the worse things can get. Volume can also kind of tell you your fire progression. It can also tell you whether or not there's a possibility for a hostile fire event. Looking at these three pictures that are up here, obviously that top left one, that's a lot of smoke. You've got a lot of smoke rolling out of that. Same with the one on the bottom left. Now, if you had that same smoke in the top left picture and that bottom left picture, it would be different, right? Different size building. We're going to get into that here in a little bit. One on the right, yeah, you got some moderate smoke, but it's not nearly as pouring out. It's not filling those openings. So like that top left one, that smoke is filling those window openings. That's what you're looking for with volume, is how much smoke is there. And a good way to judge that is how much smoke do you have coming out of your openings. Your velocity, how fast is the smoke moving? Whenever we're talking velocity, we use two main terms, and that's turbulent and laminar. Turbulent smoke is bad. Turbulent smoke, that is high heat. Your heat is generating that turbulent smoke. So the faster the smoke is moving, the more heat you have. The higher heat is a warning sign of a possible hostile fire event. Turbulent smoke and the velocity of the smoke can also indicate the distance from the fire. If you have real thick smoke, like the one on the left, coming out, but it's not really turbulent anymore, you know that smoke has cooled off. You know that smoke is a long way away from the fire, so you can have an idea of the distance back to the fire because it's lost a lot of its energy. If it comes out, in kind of a just a laminar, almost like a haze, kind of like you see in the one on the right. That's laminar smoke. It's not really moving, it's not churning. And whenever you have video of this, or whenever you actually see it, you can see that smoke churning inside of itself. You can see that smoke moving within itself. That's turbulent smoke. Velocity is also, again, a good indication of flashover, vent point ignition, or rapid fire spread. That smoke is hot, it's super. All right, so moving on to velocity. Velocity is how fast is the smoke going? How fast is the smoke moving? With the velocity, we're looking at two different terms here, and that's turbulent and laminar. Turbulent is fast-moving smoke. That's going to be what you see there on the left. It's kind of churning within itself. It's moving fast. Laminar smoke is that, light, hazy smoke that you will see on, a kitchen fire that's been put out, or somebody burnt something on the stove. That just light, hazy smoke, that's gonna be your laminar smoke. The more heat that smoke has in it, the faster it's gonna move. Higher heat is a warning sign of those hostile fire events. Obviously, the higher heat you have, the more chance you have for a flashover, that vent point ignition, the rapid fire spread that we had talked about. Velocity of the smoke can also indicate the distance from the smoke. If you have a whole lot of smoke, if you have that same amount of smoke that you're seeing in the picture to the left, but it's just like kind of lazily moving along, it's because it's a good distance away from the fire and it's cooled off. It's lost that energy. So your velocity can be a great indicator of not only what the fire is doing, but where the fire is at in a building, especially in those larger buildings. The density, whenever we're talking about that, we're looking at how thick is the smoke. Looking at this picture, the picture on the left there, that's a good thick column of smoke. The one on the right, that's just, you got just some lazy, real light smoke. It's not real thick. So that's what we're looking at whenever we talk about density. Your density can be a great indicator of the quality of burning that's happening inside. If it's burning well, if it's burning clean, you're not going to have a whole lot of smoke. If it's not burning well, if it's not burning real clean, it's going to produce more smoke. That can also be a great indicator of a possible flashover. You got that real thick, dark smoke, good indicator of a flashover. So your density, that's gonna be a good indicator for flashover, along with that velocity and that volume. Your color of the smoke can indicate a lot of things. It can indicate what is burning on the inside. That top center picture, you got that brown smoke. That's an indicator that you've got, wood products burning. Incomplete burning of wood products, so probably your structural members there. So just all things that you could think about. That top right picture, that thick black smoke, that's an indicator that you've got, synthetics burning, your rubbers, your plastics, whatever, all those thin synthetics filling that smoke full of those hydrocarbons. It can also indicate your quality of burning again. Back to that top center picture. If it was burning good, if it was burning clean, you wouldn't have that thick brown smoke. You would have very little smoke actually, because it's wood products. Color can also again indicate distance to the fire based off of what you're seeing. If you have clean white or just that real light gray smoke coming out, it's a good indication that that smoke has some distance between it and the fire, and it's because all those hydrocarbons in it that give it that color are being scrubbed off as it moves past the structure. It's getting cleaned off onto the walls. So the color of the smoke can indicate several things. Color can also, again, help you indicate whether or not or what your potential for some different hostile fire events are. Other factors to consider: your structure. How large is it? Obviously, a larger structure is going to hold more smoke. If you have a large warehouse, or our Walmarts, our big box stores, whatever, and you don't see a whole lot of smoke on arrival, that doesn't really mean much. That it's a lot larger of a box, it's holding a lot more smoke, and it's capable of holding a lot more smoke. Now you arrive, going back to this picture, that bottom left one, you arrive and see that, you know you've got a lot of stuff burning in there. In relation to the amount of smoke you see to the picture right above it, they're both a lot of smoke, but whenever you factor in the structure itself and the size of the structure, it gives you an indication of what's going on inside. The weather, your weather's going to affect smoke in different ways. The colder it is, the lower that smoke's going to stay to the ground. The more humid it is, the tighter that smoke's going to stay together. Cold and humid night, you're going to get that smoke banking down to the ground. It's going to stick around, it's going to stay together. We've all seen that on those cold, humid nights whenever people have all their fireplaces going. You can see that smoke layer coming down as it gets colder and as it gets more humid. It's because it's just sticking together. That humidity holds smoke together. Rain and fog, it's going to make reading smoke a challenge. We've all been on fires during heavy rains and during real foggy times. It's hard to tell what's smoke and what's fog. That rain, it obstructs the view of the smoke as well. So keep that in mind if you're out pumping a fire and it's rainy or it's foggy outside. It's going to make that a lot more challenging to be able to use this reading smoke. High winds are going to break your smoke up as soon as it comes out the opening and leaves the structure. Again, it can make it a lot more challenging to read the smoke. It'll also, if you're not paying attention, you have those high winds, it breaks that smoke up. It's going to make it seem like there's a lot less smoke than there actually is. You just need to keep that in mind. Firefighting tactics. With this one, basically anything we do on the inside of that fire is going to affect the smoke that we see on the outside. If we're spraying water, we're going to get that steam conversion. We're going to get that smoke changing over to steam. Something to consider. If you're on the outside and you hear the interior crews talking about how they're getting a good knock on the fire or thinking they found the seat of the fire, and you're not seeing that steam conversion, they're probably not actually hitting the seat of the fire. Something to look out for. Likewise, if they're in there and they're not sure what they've got, they're not sure if they found that seat of the fire, and you see that steam conversion, you can let the incident commander know what you're seeing. They can let them know, hey, I've got good steam conversion out here. It looks like you're hitting that seat of the fire. Ventilation. With firefighting tactics, we start doing ventilation on a structure. It's going to greatly change what we're seeing. Somebody puts a positive pressure fan in the front door, you're going to all of a sudden start seeing a lot more smoke. Just be cognizant of that. Be aware, hey, yeah, they just put the fan in the door. That makes sense on why I'm now seeing a whole lot more smoke coming out. Likewise, if they vent a window that wasn't vented, it may change where the smoke is coming from. Doesn't really mean that anything's changed on the inside. It's just it's got a new opening for the smoke to come out of. Same with vertical vent. They vertical vent a house. It's going to change where the smoke's coming out of, and it can create a lot more smoke coming out of that vent opening for a short amount of time for whatever smoke has gotten trapped up in the attic space and up in the higher areas. So that ventilation, that increase in smoke or that decrease in smoke doesn't really mean that much is changing inside. It just means that it's coming out of a different opening, or it has a larger opening for it to come out of, so you might start seeing more or less. Likewise, as crews are working on the inside, they start shutting doors, they start opening doors. That's going to change the amount of smoke that you see. They open up a door on a room that's filled with smoke, all of a sudden you see this big increase in smoke volume come out. Wait a couple seconds. There's crews in there working. Wait a couple seconds and see if it's consistent, or see if it kind of dies back down. Likewise, if you see a whole bunch of smoke coming out of an opening and then all of a sudden you didn't, or there's no more smoke coming out of it, well, there's a good possibility they shut the door. So just be cognizant on how our firefighting tactics can change what you're seeing on the outside. Doesn't necessarily mean that the conditions on the inside are getting better or worse. It just means that we're changing stuff on the inside, which is going to change the smoke that you're seeing on the outside. So as the DO and reading smoke, you're in the prime position. You have the best seat in the house. You've got an upfront row to the fire whenever you're on that first arriving apparatus and you're the DO pumping the fire. You're parked right in front of or right past the fire. You have a perfect spot on it. And with that, you can act as that additional safety officer. You can use the knowledge of fire behavior and fire dynamics coupled with the ability to read the smoke and have an idea of what's going on and act as that safety officer by being able to predict possible hostile fire events. You can predict, yeah, this is getting bad. I need to let command know what I'm seeing. Also, based on what you're seeing, you can make predictions on what's going on the scene and what you're going to need to do on the scene. You start seeing a whole lot of smoke coming out of, or you have a whole lot of smoke coming out, the crew's saying that they're hitting the fire, they found the seat of the fire, but it's not changing. There's a good possibility they're going to call for an additional hand line. As the first due DO, you can go on ahead and pull that hand line. You can get it in position before it's even called for based on what you're seeing. Likewise, if you see that, hey, this is getting bad, it looks like we're probably, going to end up going defensive on this, you could get those hand lines pulled and in position so that that transition over to a defensive fire is that much smoother, that much quicker. Gets us all off scene quicker, gets us back to the stations a lot quicker. And just makes the overall operations of the scene go a lot better. Salvage and overhaul, you see them get that good transition to that good, you start seeing a good steam conversion. You're not seeing that dark smoke anymore. You're seeing that nice white, clean steam coming out. We're more than likely going to end up switching over to salvage and overhaul. As that first due DO, you could then start staging some salvage and overhaul tools up towards the front door, start pulling them off the truck, having them ready. We're horrible about doing salvage. I think the main reason we're horrible about doing salvage is because we just don't think about it. As that first arriving DO pumping the fire, you see that we're getting ready to switch over to salvage and overhaul operations based off of what you're seeing in the smoke. Pull those salvage tarps out and get them up towards the front door. We see the tarps, we're going to think about it, and we're much more likely to do it. So it's just going to help with the overall progression of the scene. Likewise with ventilation, if you see them getting a good knock on the fire, or you see that there's just a whole lot of smoke and they can't really find the seat of the fire, they might call for some ventilation to help clear up conditions inside. You can get that positive pressure fan in position, you can get it ready, and it's just going to help with the scene, make the scene go quicker. At the end of the day, as that first arriving DO, if you use your fire behavior, fire dynamics knowledge, you use this reading smoke, it's going to help you predict the scene, it's going to help you anticipate the needs, and it's going to help you stay ahead of the game. Make the scene go quicker, make the scene go smoother, and make for an overall safer scene. Moving on to the next objective. Student shall determine which size hose line to use as a backup line for a variety of fire situations. As that first arriving DO, you start using that reading smoke knowledge and that fire dynamic, fire behavior knowledge. You can make predictions on what additional hand lines are going to be needed. You can make that prediction on, yeah, they're probably going to be calling for a backup line, or they're probably going to be needing to do some exposure protection. Or you might need that DO line, and we'll go over the DO line and what it actually is here in just a minute. But using that fire behavior, that fire dynamics, and that smoke reading knowledge, you can start making predictions and getting lines in place. Your backup line. So backup lines, they need to be, if you know that, hey, there's a good possibility they're going to be needing an additional line in there, they're going to be needing a backup line. Whenever you pull a backup line, it needs to be at minimum the same size line as the attack line. So if your attack crew, if we're on, Walmart's on fire, or the Pods warehouse is on fire, whatever any of our larger buildings are, if they pull a 2.5 as the primary attack line, you need to pull a 2.5 as the backup line. that backup line needs to be at minimum the same size line as that primary attack line. And then depending on the involvement, depending on the structure and what you're seeing, they may have pulled 1 3/4 as the attack line. You might look at it and go, yeah, we need something bigger for the backup line. Pull that 2.5, there's nothing wrong with it. You can pull the 2.5 on those large buildings, deep-seated fires or buildings with heavy fire involvement. Pull that 2.5 as a backup line if they didn't pull it as the attack line. There's nothing wrong with that. Every single working fire should have a backup line pulled on. All of them. Whether it's needed or not, every fire should have a backup line pulled on. And as that first arriving DO, that is something that's real easy for you to do. You can pull that backup line without being asked and have it ready to go for whenever that next crew gets there to use it. It's going to just expedite the process, make things easier on the crew. Your fire location is going to determine where you want to pull that backup line to. Based off of that reading smoke and based off of what you're hearing from the interior crews, they may have taken that primary attack line in through the front door, but based off of what you're seeing and based off of what you're hearing them do, it may be better to pull that backup line over to the back door. You know, if they've located the fire, it's on the back side of the house, it's in like that CD corner. It may be easier and quicker for you to pull a backup line to the back door and let the crew go in from there. So listen to what the crews are doing on the inside as you're the DO. You should be listening to the radio, listening to what's going on the inside. Coupled with reading the building and reading the smoke, you're going to be able to know where that backup line's probably going to be needed at and be able to get it pre-staged there. Your exposure line. So with the exposure line, if you expect that it's going to be needed, get them in place early. With exposure lines, our blitz fire, it's a great line for an exposure line because it's an unmanned monitor. One person can set it up. Once it's flowing, you can walk away, leave it alone, not have to have anybody there. So if you use if you have to have a blitz, or if you have to have an exposure line on the ground, think about using that blitz fire. The only thing with the blitz fire is you cannot flow it, you cannot charge it until you have a water supply established. So if you're thinking exposure protection right out the gate, you may need to use that 1 3/4 line first until you get that water supply established, just to maximize the amount of time that you have off of tank water. If you don't have a water supply, or if we're on a rural water supply, use an 1 3/4 line. Don't use that blitz fire for the exposure protection. Yeah, it's great. It doesn't require any staffing to operate, but it burns through water in a hurry and whenever you don't have a water supply established. Or if we're on a rural water supply, that blitz fire is not your best option. With your exposure line, again, think about that Cleveland bundle or that high-rise pack that we have. You don't want to waste attack lines that crews are going to need inside on an exposure line. Well, we have 100 feet of hose in a Cleveland bundle on the back of the truck that can very easily be attached to a discharge or to that, portable standpipe pack. We can stretch that out if we need that extra length of hose. It's got a gated Y on there, so if we need more water on the exposure, guess what? We can hook up another section of hose to that gated Y, not a problem. So whenever it comes to your exposure line, think about that Cleveland bundle. It's also a great opportunity to pull it off the truck and remember how to use it, remember how to repack it. It's not something that we use often, so don't be afraid to pull that off as an exposure line. At the end of the day, water supply, staffing, and your fire conditions have to be considered whenever you're thinking about your exposure line and what you want to pull, what you want to use, and where you want to place that exposure line. Back to that Cleveland bundle, just another thing with it, it's also easily positioned by a single firefighter. You can easily pull that Cleveland bundle off, put it in position, get it all hooked up by yourself in a very short amount of time. So it's a good option. The DO line. So what am I talking about whenever I refer to a DO line? I didn't coin this phrase. I took a class. I don't remember which class it was, but I took a class where they used this term, and I just really liked it, and I liked the idea of the DO line. So what is the DO line? The DO line is it's a hose line for the driver operator. It's a hose line for them to be able to darken down the fire, knock some fire down, make conditions better, cool off the inside, while the attack crew is at the front door getting ready, or while the attack crew is making their way to the fire. It's that transitional attack that we hear about. You know, we've all heard about the transitional attack, but it's just that DO making that exterior knockdown while the crew is getting ready to go in. That's what I'm referring to as that DO line. It's just a line for the driver operator to be able to go over, grab, knock down visible fire while the crew's making their way in. In addition, the DO line, if you're using that DO line on the exterior, if you're using that line, if you're going to use it, what you need to do with that line, especially if you have crews going in and you're spraying that water while crews are still going in, trying to find that seat of the fire. We've all seen the UL NIST studies where they're talking about how to darken down the fire from the outside without pushing fire. You want to use that straight stream, or that fog nozzle over on the complete straight stream side. And you want to hit it at a high angle. You want to hit the ceiling just inside the opening of the window or the door that you're spraying water through. You want to hit the ceiling and just hold that nozzle still. You're not moving it around. You're just hitting it, letting that stream hit the ceiling, break up, spread out across the room. It acts just like a sprinkler system. And you can do this if you do it the correct way. If you're spraying that ceiling just inside the window at that real steep angle, you can do this without having to worry about hitting your crews on the inside with the stream. All you're hitting is the ceiling, it's breaking up, it's not going to hurt them on the inside. So if you employ the DO line, that's how you're going to want to do it. You're going to want to hit that ceiling just inside the fire room. With the DO line, the bumper line, front bumper line, is a great line to use for this. It's a pre-connect. It's real quick and easy for that DO to pull, and it's not going to be used as a primary attack line the majority of the time. It's a 100-foot section. You're going to be able to reach the majority of what you need to reach on the exterior of the house, and it's not something that we use as an attack line on the interior. Again, the Cleveland bundle. This is another opportunity for you to use the Cleveland bundle for the DO line. It's quick, it's easy to employ, and it can be done with a single firefighter relatively easy and relatively quick. If neither of those are really options, or if you don't want to use those, we always have the extra sections of hose in the engineer's compartment with the extra nozzles. You can throw a couple of them together real quick, or if you need to, add them to the Cleveland bundle or to the front bumper line if you need to reach like the C side of the house and it's just not quite long enough. Don't forget that you have those as well. Additionally, you knock down that fire, you blacken down that fire a little bit, that DO line can easily become an exposure line or an additional exposure line. Once you're done using it, you can move it over to become an exposure line. So it's just another option. It's another line help make the fire ground better.
So you're primarily just using that your first few minutes on scene.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the DO line is going to be the first couple minutes on scene while your attack crew's still trying to get ready, or they are ready, they're making entry, and they're still working their way towards the fire. If you have that visible fire on the outside, use that DO line, darken it down, blacken it down. It's gonna make conditions inside better. It's gonna reduce your chances of flashover, reduce your chances of those hostile fire events. And it's gonna increase conditions on the inside for any possible victims. So, using the reading smoke and using the backup lines and the additional lines that we had just talked about, if you're the first arriving DO to this fire, are you gonna pull backup lines?
Yes.
Okay, what are you gonna pull?
2.5.
2.5? Okay. LDH, exposure lines? You gonna pull any exposure lines? Do you see a need for exposure lines?
Probably
No?
not. I don't think so.
I might pull one down here to this, looks like this might be the Charlie side. I might pull one down here for this. It's not gonna be a priority, but, whenever I have them in it, I might pull a line down there for that, have it in place. Based off the smoke we're seeing, there's a good chance that things could go wrong in a hurry there and it could become a defensive fire. And again, even if if it's not an exposure line and it goes defensive, well, now you have your line on that side to use for your defensive fire attack. How about a DO line? You see a need for a DO line on this one? I don't.
You're gonna be way too busy doing a whole bunch of.
Yep. How about here? Backup line?
Definitely.
What size?
2.5.
A full 2.5? Okay. Yeah, 2.5. 1.75 would probably be appropriate on this one as well. That's probably what the initial attack crew is going to go in with, is 1.75. It's hard to see on here, but this is actually a garage that's on fire. You got garage door, garage door, garage door, and then these are windows into the garage. So you have a garage that's on fire there. Backup line, yes, we agreed. Backup line, 1.75 or 2.5 would probably be appropriate on this one. How about an exposure line? You gonna pull an exposure line?
Yeah, you probably.
Where to?
Well, I would assume there's probably a house close, but without seeing a better view, you're not really sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's either a house or.
Yeah, it looks like maybe an exterior detached shop or detached garage back there. Yeah, exposure line to that would be appropriate. Would you consider at this point, based off of what you're seeing, it looks like, based off smoke conditions, again, we weren't here, so we don't know for sure. It looks like it's just the garage that's on fire. It doesn't look like it's made it into the house yet. Would you consider the house an exposure?
Yes,
Would you pull a line to protect
Yes.
it? Okay,
I would get that window.
so exposure line there, yeah. How about a DO line? Would you
Yes.
pull a DO line on this one?
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't have any visible fire, but you can absolutely start flowing some water in on there, on that smoke. You know, 5-10 years ago, whenever.
Way.
All right, let's try.
What is that? Pile of mulch. Was there a tree right there?
Yes, there was a tree right there at one point in time.
Yeah.
There was a couple of trees back there at one point in time. All right, so the good news is the camera shut off this time, and I had only gone over one more slide after it shut off, so only have to repeat one slide this go around. I have no idea what's going on with it.
Man, that's just crazy. I wish there was like a fucking app, and then you could just go to the app and be like, okay, like you see the time still.
So there is, I just don't have that camera because it's a brand new camera.
It should be as easy as record.
Yeah, I know.
Stop.
It should be, but I don't know what's going on with it.
Smack it. Smack it real good. Oh, and technology.
Yeah, me
Man,
and
I am so
technology is
excited.
not friends.
I heard that all the network stuff's in, so I'm gonna start be able to get that going. I'm really excited.
We got the new computer over at one.
Yeah,
From what I've heard, it's just in the office, not in the bunker.
it is for now.
Marlon had nothing but problems with it, was
Oh,
gonna
yeah.
pass along, but then Stevens had everything went
Which
great.
is odd, because Stevens is the one that,
Usually it's,
yeah. Yep. I don't know, I'm not taking care of that yet, I'm hoping to get that way, because that stuff drives me nuts. It's like, why can't we have nice things?
because that would be too easy.
Yeah, and I'm doing the same thing at church right now. Putting in a 17 camera system, all PoE powered. I'm having to run cable for everything. I've already put in, I probably put in 600 or 700 feet of cable so far this last week. And then mounting everything and all that crap, so.
Well, whatever you guys did at once, station zone alerting system,
Oh, damn, that's damn.
I'll do whatever happened, it's.
Cause I got to talking to him and I'm pretty sure it had the wrong antenna hooked to that box. Cause it was hooked to an 800 megahertz antenna, cause most antennas are tuned to a certain frequency. And so they pick up frequencies better if they're tuned to that frequency than other ones are. Has to do with the shape and the length of them and that kind of stuff. There's a big, long, nasty math problem there. But anyways, it was hooked to an 800 megahertz antenna, which is what our radios run off of. Well, the toning system runs off of VHF, which is like 154 range. Well, it's 154 to 800, that's a big spread. And so he put just a regular, like a scanner antenna that's a little bit more universal. And I think that helped out immensely.
For what?
Station One's tones.
Oh, yeah.
They were running it off an 800 megahertz antenna instead of using like a VHF antenna. And then they wondered why the tones weren't going off. So
Weird concept.
I got to talking to Dave and he's like, well, I have it aimed at the tower. And I'm like, you shouldn't have to aim it at the tower. Oh yeah, they got the tower because they,
Stack
okay.
Yeah.
It's not the way that works.
Whatever, Dan.
Maxi.
And so then he's like, yeah, I'm just gonna put one up there.
So Crump's getting me his GoPro as well, so we'll have two of them recording at a time, so hopefully out of all of it I can piece together the entire class.
That sounds like an awesome idea.
Yeah.
Back up. We could always break out some VHF tapes and
Yeah.
VHS tapes. and
Yeah.
I've got the stuff to convert it over to digital if we need to.
I've always wanted to get a GoPro.
No. They're great when they work appropriately.
If you need another one, I actually have, from when I used to work at Bass Pro,
Yeah.
I get the newest one for like $150, like the black edition.
Yeah, I'm gonna go start working at Bass Pro for many reasons, and that's just another one.
I don't work there
Oh,
anymore,
that was-
but it still works. I was logged in.
O'Reilly's, man, I love working at O'Reilly's. I got oil change for like $40. Synthetic everything.
Yeah, Bass Pro's.
Bass Pro and O'Reilly's, man. Of course,
That discount is solid.
Yeah. Well, and that was the thing, if you work for O'Reilly's, you got the Bass Pro discount too.
Really?
Yeah, we like stockpile our catalogs in our warehouse. They have like rows and rows of Bass Pro catalogs in their warehouse at O'Reilly's. Like they did.
You cannot be 45% off any Bass Pro products.
I know. And that was the thing with O'Reilly's, because everything on O'Reilly's was 10% on the list. You know what list is on some of that stuff? Unless it's special order, and it's like 20, 25, or 30 on the list. Wow, it's still really good discount. Better than what AutoZone gives their people. AutoZone gives their people a better discount on their special order crap, and then you get no discount on oil and antifreeze, and no discount whatsoever. That's lame. There he is. His man was playing.
What's up, Big Jono?
I told Burr we could always record that on VHS and then I could just convert it over digitally.
Yes.
I've got the stuff to convert it.
Trying to chalk that one out. It's like a thin man.
Does that thing have voice commands, Crum? Stop video?
Think so.
Stop video?
Well, I didn't think mine
Bert didn't
did,
either.
and then I found
Get
out
it?
that
Oh, that was a good one.
Saving the day.
Save that one. Save that one for later. Boogers.
Alright, what's up with the leaning tower of drinkage?
Max.
It's
Who
Max's.
knows?
Max's drinkage.
I helped him out with that.
Well, we discussed drinking his bang.
Picture it.
Just pass around his bang and drink.
Possible.
It's gonna be in the camera, too, so even if it is
And
recorded.
then he's got his
It's
coffee.
recording right now.
For a couple of years, we
He's drinking his bang and then his coffee and
Hey,
then his water. So, in order of priorities, they're all nice and set up for him.
Gotta stay hydrated.
Yep, stay dehydrated.
So how much you get through this time?
It stopped recording, one slide before we went on break, so
The light seems like it's flashing.
I turned it on, so it's now flashing. I now know whenever it's not recording. Which was why I went on break this time, was because I looked up there and it stopped flashing, and I'm like, okay.
Something's not right.
Is it 15 minutes again?
No, this time I got, half an hour,
Cool.
so
I wonder if that's on a setting where auto shut off.
I
Yeah,
looked, and there's not one in there, so.
Nate's the funniest guy.
This thing does video.
Yeah,
We put it in order of priorities there.
All right, we'll get started back up again.
Yes. No. You should win 6 points, I guess.
Nay.
Yeah, dude. Thanks for running those. Appreciate you guys.
Bert, is there a minimum or maximum size you have to have this?
Not HD.
It's not HD?
Yeah, not HD, just so that it'll actually upload.
So if I go down to like 720, you'll be a lot better.
Yeah, I think I've got mine set on like 960. Like the lowest setting that GoPro has. Alright, so, before we went on break, while you guys were gone, we talked about the additional lines that the DO can pull, backup line, the exposure line, and the DO line. For those of you that weren't here, the DO line is really, it's just a line that the driver can use to reset the fire while the interior crew is getting ready and making their way into the fire. So basically that transitional attack, it's something that the DO can do constantly and consistently throughout the fire attack crew trying to make their way to the fire. So, went over a couple different scenarios already, but we'll hit this one. Would you pull backup line on this one? Yeah, what size? 2.5? Do an inch report. I don't really think there's a need for a 2.5 on this one. You're not wrong with the 2.5, but inch and 3/4 is going to give you a little bit more maneuverability and get in there. Exposure line. You know, an exposure line on this one. A couple of them maybe. Yeah. Different engine with exposure lines. So how about a DO line? You don't want a DO line on this one? Yeah. Yeah, this is a prime one for the DO line. You got visible fire showing out of there. Yes.
Apologize, I missed the explanation, the difference between a back line and a line?
So the DO line is going to be it's going to be a line that the driver can use while your first due, you just have an engine crew there. When your crew is getting ready at the front door to make entry or making their way to the fire, it's that line on the exterior that the DO can use to knock down visible fire and reset visible fire. Kind of that transitional attack mindset. So yeah, this is a prime example of when you might want to use a DO line. You've got visible fire. The fire's on Division 2. So while that crew's getting ready at the front door, making their way inside and trying to make their way up the stairs or conducting a quick primary search on Division 1 before they make their way upstairs to the fire, that DO could be on the outside knocking down that visible fire, resetting that fire and just making conditions inside a lot better for everybody, victims and the crews working in there. So, yes, this is a prime fire for a DO line.
Can the backup line, can a DO line become a backup line and vice versa?
It can, yeah, DO line can become a backup line. The DO line can become an exposure line. The key with the DO line though is once it's out and charged, you know, it's a lot harder to move a charged line than it is an uncharged line. So the DO line, a lot of times, this is great for that front bumper line. It's easy for the DO to deploy real quick, easy to put back up, and it's not going to become an interior line. So I wouldn't want to use like the second pre-connect because your backup team may take that inside before your primary attack team even makes it to the seat of the fire. So use one of those lines that's probably not going to become an attack line. Cleveland bundle, again, you can use a Cleveland bundle for this. Pull it off, hook it up to your discharge, and use it as the DO line. Because you're not worried about the DO line going inside. It's just a line that you can pull off the truck, knock down a little bit of visible fire, and drop and forget until the end of the scene whenever it needs to be reloaded.
So you could throw that front motor line, and as you're coming back across the truck, charge it.
Mhm.
You're on there now.
Yep. So, but yeah, you can use the same line, if, depending on where your fire's at and how the building's laid out, absolutely, your backup line and your DO line could be the same. Your backup line, your DO line, and an exposure line could all be the same line. It just depends on this building setup and, what your fire conditions are. Any more questions on additional lines? Yes, Artie?
I'm just looking at this picture here, and it appears to be, this would be a classic scenario for a truck operation.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the distance, how far back the building is, I don't know. If the initial arriving captain's gonna be able to go full 360 or not, I mean, this may go back 300 feet or
Yeah.
something and be a quarter mile long or whatever. Do you concur with that? I mean, again, this appears to be the classic second due, hopefully would be a truck or shortly thereafter for truck operations on this scenario.
Oh, yes, absolutely. We're gonna have some truck operations going on this. On fire like this, it's gonna be classic for truck operations. Luckily, you know, this isn't what we have in our district. So, you know, our town homes, our row homes are 4 or 5, you know, units long and that's it. So, that's not to say that, you know, next week they're not gonna build something new here because we've got stuff popping up all over the place, so. Same thing can be done though with like our apartment complexes.
Yeah.
This is, you know, just change this over to an apartment complex instead of row homes. It's the same scenario. Apartment on either side is an exposure, so yeah, you're gonna want exposure lines to each of those.
But I mean, I'm assuming the picture here, there's a lot of fire, not much smoke.
Mhm.
That tells me this thing is really on fire on much more than room contents. I mean, it's burning heavily.
Yeah,
So probably it's extended to either side of this. I'm thinking out loud here.
yeah, no, absolutely.
So this could turn south real quick.
Absolutely it could.
And again, going back to what Max suggested, on a 2.5, that might not be a bad idea, you know, big water
Yeah.
initially. And again, yeah, what I don't like, all of us don't like about 2.5 is very hard to move around once it's charged.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably our biggest restriction on that.
Yeah, trying to get the 2.5 upstairs to be a backup line on this would be troublesome, but it might be necessary.
And then again, in theory, you probably got twice as much water
Mhm.
time-wise on the 1.75 inch than you do on the 2.5. So what do you want? You want the time or you want the big water? It's a judgment call.
Yeah, it absolutely is. It absolutely is. I mean, realistically on this one, you know, while your crews are getting ready on the outside, if you've got a water supply established or you got, you know, plug in the front yard, whatever, your DO line might be the deck gun.
That's what I was thinking, it'd be if you had the LDH at the field.
Yeah. Yeah, if you've got
You
the
got
water
nothing to
supply,
lose.
your DO line could very easily be the deck gun put a, couple 100,000 gallons in there, whatever, had reset that fire, knock down a good amount of fire with that deck gun, shut it off, let the crews go in, mop it up. Any other questions on that? Good questions, good conversation. All right, moving on to objective 3. Students shall predict which tools could be required for a RIT in a variety of Mayday situations. So, some common reasons for RIT activations. We've got our lost and disoriented firefighters, low air emergencies, medical emergencies, structural collapse, our hostile fire events, and crews getting cut off or trapped by fire. And the list goes on, but these are 6 good umbrella RIT activation causes that cover a lot of different things. Anything else you can think of that could be a common, or that we commonly see as RIT activations? I mean, I think I did a pretty good job of covering the majority of them just with some good umbrellas, but I'm open to suggestions and ideas or anything that I didn't think of.
Just additional resources for victim removal.
So, okay.
I'd say that's it.
So with those common RIT activations, we have some common RIT tools that we pull. The majority of the time that we're established to RIT, this is what we see, this is what we pull as the RIT crew. We'll pull our RIT pack, we'll pull some hand tools, pull some power saws, our ladders, some rope, and usually the company officer has the tick. Is there anything else that you guys commonly pull whenever you're assigned to RIT?
SCBA bottles.
Spare SCBA bottles?
Water, med bag.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I will tell you, actually, we're going to go over this. That's actually on my list of uncommon RIT tools that get pulled. I've never seen a RIT team pull a med bag. Even though medical emergencies, cardiac arrest, or cardiac emergencies is one of the primary reasons we have line of duty deaths. I've never seen the RIT team pull a medical bag. So, but it's good that you do. It's real good that you do. So, uncommon RIT tools. These are things that we should be pulling that we normally don't. They're things that we, if we have a RIT activation, these are absolutely tools that we could end up using that we don't pull. Airbags off the rescue. Structural collapse, airbags could be a very valuable tool to have. Additional RIT packs. We always pull the one off of our engine whenever we're assigned RIT. How many pulls additional ones? If it's not there, probably not going to use it. Every single engine we have, the truck, the rescue, every apparatus that's on scene has a RIT bag. Pull them all. I don't care. They can get put back on as easy as they're taken off. But pull those additional RIT bags. Spare SCBA bottles, you mentioned that you pull. Very few crews get assigned to RIT and pull additional SCBA bottles. They just pull the RIT pack. Z-Rig. Z-Rig could be very, very valuable in a RIT operation, helping rescue a firefighter. Stokes basket or backboards, usually don't pull those. The medical bag, sounds like you guys do. Don't forget with the medical bag, the AED. Cardiac arrest is, we're dying off from cardiac events all the time. The secondary tick. The battalion chief has a tick in their rig. They're not using it, their command. Go over and steal their tick. You have, multiple lost or disoriented firefighters, or even a single lost or disoriented firefighters. More than one tick in there is going to be valuable. More than one set of eyes looking for them. The torch, the cutting torch off the rescue or the truck. That's going to be something you may want, especially if we get on one of these commercial buildings that's metal and we have a collapse. We may have to do some cutting to get them out of there. So that's a good thing to pull out for RIT. What else? What else can you think of that we have at our disposal that we don't normally pull for RIT operations that we probably should or could?
Water.
Water,
Rehabilitation, like.
rehab? Yeah, that's more under the rehab, whoever's assigned rehab, EMS or, whatever, but as that first due DO, absolutely, go on ahead and get that rehab set up.
You know, the ladders on there.
Ladders are on the con.
Yeah.
What about
What's that?
the portable door spreader, what's that called,
Yeah, the rabbit tool
Yeah.
off the truck, yeah, that could be very valuable.
The lighting.
Lighting, yeah. Yeah, pull some box lights, pull some,
Anything you can mark your exits.
Yep. So, we're gonna get into scene lighting here, here in a little bit, but yeah, absolutely some lighting, some additional box lights, you know? We've got 2 to 3 people on a crew. We have 4 box lights, on each apparatus, so not every box light's gonna be used. Steal the extra box lights off of your rig, steal the extra box lights off of other rigs. Use them, yeah, mark exits, just help light up inside whenever you find the down firefighter. Be able to get them packaged, ready to get them out, especially in a structural collapse. You're probably gonna need some lighting in there to help see what you're doing. How about cribbing? Wanna pull some cribbing? We're gonna start cutting stuff, we're gonna start moving stuff during a structural collapse. We're gonna wanna crib up and around that firefighter to make sure we don't move one thing and another thing come down on them. I mean, we could even get down in the weeds and start talking about, you know, shoring. We don't really carry the stuff for shoring, but, cribbing will work in a pinch, and yeah, we can pull cribbing off. So how does that, the stuff that we're pulling for RIT, apply to that first due DO? RIT has their hands full whenever they get assigned as RIT. That first couple minutes on the scene, they've got their hands full. You know, they're hopefully doing a 360. They're hopefully throwing ladders. They're getting a tool. They're getting their tools staged in the front yard. They're getting a game plan together on, okay, this is the structure we have. This is what I'm seeing. That, you know, whoever that RIT officer is probably thinking, starting to run through some scenarios in their head of, okay, if we have this happen, you know, this is probably the best entrance. They're softening the structure, you know, forcing doors. RIT's got their hands full that first couple minutes that they get on the scene. And they're always understaffed. A 4-person RIT team is not an effective RIT team. And how often do we have 4 people on the truck? Usually it's 3 or 2. So we assign an engine company with 3 people as RIT. That is not an effective RIT team. They are understaffed. So that first due DO can help out by getting tools staged. Getting those uncommon tools that we normally don't think about, get those out there and get them staged. If they're forgotten by RIT easily, they're not gonna pull them. If they're not out there, they're probably not gonna be used in the event of a mayday. If you don't see it, you're probably not gonna think about it. So if you have that structural collapse, you're like, okay, man, we gotta figure out how to get them out of here. If you see those airbags, oh, well, yeah, just pinned under some stuff, we've got the airbags here we can live. If they weren't out there, what's the chances you're gonna think, hey, we need the airbags off the rescue? You know, you're probably not going to, so having them pulled out and visible for the RIT team, it's just gonna make it that much more likely that the tools are actually used whenever they can help.
I got a question for you.
What's that?
You talk about shoring stuff, I'm not too familiar with shoring, but couldn't the jacks off the rescue, you know, make the shoring thing?
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. The rescue struts, those stabilization struts,
Yeah.
those could absolutely come in hand. You're gonna have to get creative
Right.
with structural collapse stuff. I'm using those, but yeah, they could definitely play a role. They could be a valuable tool to have. So, like I said, RIT's got their hands full. They're always understaffed. RIT's likely, or more than likely, not gonna remember to grab, you know, a lot of this stuff. And guess what, if they do, and you as the first arriving DO already have it out there, and they bring it up also, awesome, so you have 2 of them. What's the problem with having 2 med bags sitting there? What's the problem with having 2 backboards sitting there? Nothing. Unfortunately, we're likely gonna have more than one firefighter down, or more than one firefighter that's gonna need rescued, so it's perfectly okay to have duplicates. You may end up needing them. So that's why this is important for that first arriving DO is you can help make RIT better prepared and help expedite the process. Also, the vast majority of RIT activations happen within the first 10 minutes of an incident. So if you're that first arriving DO and you have a lot of that stuff already out there, it's usually what, our 4th, 5th, 6th crew that arrives before we assign a RIT. You know, it's one of the last crews that arrive that gets assigned to RIT. We could easily be 8 minutes into that 10-minute window. So having those tools out there just helps RIT be better prepared if that RIT activation happens right after they're assigned. Or say we have an incident happen before we've assigned a RIT, and now it's, hey, you just became RIT, get in there. You've already got those tools out there ready to go, because that first arriving DO staged them for you. So kind of going back to the RIT tools and what we need to throw. November 24th of last year, so just a couple months ago, Minneapolis, Minnesota firefighter had a pretty close call. He got separated, lost and disoriented in a multi-story residence with pretty good fire involvement. He was able to escape from the upper floor onto an aerial ladder. But what would have happened if that ladder wasn't set up yet? What would have happened if that aerial wasn't on scene yet or wasn't set up yet? And Rick had thrown ground ladders. Could have easily become a fatality, a line of duty death, instead of a close call. Also, majority of ground ladders, or majority of rescues, majority of all rescues happen from ground ladders, not from aerials. So, thinking of the RIT stuff, thinking of those uncommon tools that we normally don't think about pulling. Give me some of those uncommon tools that you might pull for a structural collapse. Some of those uncommon tools that might be needed during a structural collapse. Chainsaw?
Your Mary set, your hooks.
Okay.
Airbags.
Airbags, cribbing.
Yeah, go back to all the common stuff.
Yeah, they're uncommon.
Mm-hmm. So airbags, cribbing, maybe the cutting torches, you know, depending on what the structure's made out of.
Would we call for
Additional
mutual aid
kick.
on crews that are certified for structural collapse?
What's that?
Would we call for mutual aid for crews that are certified?
No, we're not waiting on them.
No.
We're not waiting on them. We're gonna get in there and rescue our firefighter. We're not gonna wait on a structural collapse
I
team.
think the jaws and the rims out.
Yeah, Jaws and the Ram, especially those on truck 3, the battery operated ones that don't require a power unit in there. Those would be good ones.
Gas tank.
We have a lot of lines too, so.
Yeah, so
Fuel cans will need to be laid out for easily answered.
how about additional RIT packs?
Yep.
If you're gonna have a firefighter trapped in a structural collapse, you never know how long you're gonna be in there trying to free him. So some additional RIT packs in there for air supply for him, air supply for the RIT team, for the rescuers. You know, it's real easy for us to get in there and start trying to save one of our own and completely forget about our own air supply, and then all of a sudden we are now an additional mayday. So have those additional RIT packs in there. Kind of go back. I think I've told the majority of you this story, but you know, I took a class at FDIC, one of the hot classes, a RIT combat drills class, And at the end of the day, we did a scenario, and it was a single firefighter down that needed saved. It took, we had 4-man RIT teams, we had 20 of them, 20 4-man RIT teams. And it took those 20 4-person RIT teams 4 hours and 3 rotations every team to save that one down firefighter. And in the process, we had 3 additional maydays called by RIT, because they were getting in there, working on saving the down firefighter, ran low on air, tried to make their way out, got lost or disoriented. So additional RIT packs could definitely come in hand. Cutting torch could be useful. Z-rig could be useful. Box lights, light up, see what you're doing in there. How about multiple lost or disoriented firefighters? What are some of those uncommon things that we normally don't think about pulling for RIT? If you had multiple lost or disoriented firefighters, what's some things you might need? Additional RIT packs, additional SCBA bottles, yeah. Additional backboards, yeah.
Portable scene lights, so they can see it through a window.
Mm-hmm.
If they're
So-
disoriented, they can see it.
How about additional tick, secondary tick, additional med bag, additional AED, low air emergencies. And some of the things we might want to pull for that. A lot of it's going to be the same as that multiple lost or disoriented firefighter. You know, your additional RIT bags, additional bottles, additional ticks, additional med bags, all that fun stuff. Hostile fire events. What's some of the uncommon things we might pull for the RIT team for that?
Backup.
Yeah, additional hose lines for the RIT, water can. You know, vast majority of the time, water can's not going to do a whole lot if we're talking about the hostile fire events. You can put out a lot of fire with a can, but yeah, some additional hose lines, additional medical bags. You know, you got more than one firefighter in there. If you have a flashover, unfortunately, you're probably going to be treating 2 or 3 burned firefighters, if not more. So your additional backboards, those things. Any others you can think of? Any other scenarios you can think of where you would need some, you know, need something specialized for, something that we normally don't pull?
We're gonna bariatric tarp.
Yeah,
Quick to pull.
our bariatric tarp, those would be quick to get a firefighter just rolled over onto and drug out. Gives you some additional handles
Attic
to
ladder.
pull from. Yeah, some ladders, some attic ladders. You know, there's the list goes on things that we may need as a RIT. And as that first arriving DO, absolutely pull that stuff out. It's not going to hurt anything. So moving on to the 4th objective. Students shall demonstrate setting up proper scene lighting using equipment found on their assigned apparatus to ensure all sites and structure are illuminated. So what is proper scene lighting and why is it so important? Well, proper scene lighting, obviously, it's going to make the scene safer. It's going to significantly increase the overall firefighter safety and survival factor of the scene. And we're going to talk about a couple of different instances in here, a couple of different line of duty deaths where scene lighting could have, if they had proper scene lighting, it could have prevented a line of duty death. Helps your interior firefighters stay oriented, helps your Mayday firefighters find their exits. And a lack of scene lighting can actually cause Maydays. It can contribute directly to Maydays. This is going to be one of those cases where improper scene lighting contributed to a Mayday. NIOSH report F 2014-24. Safety officer falls through a hole in a vacant row house and dies of smoke inhalation. This was the Delta exposure. It wasn't even the fire building. The Delta exposure had not been, did not have any fire in it. Safety officer was doing a walkthrough. There was a hole in the floor. Didn't see it, fell into it and died. Smoke inhalation. Smoke had built up down there. He wasn't wearing a pack. Was in there by himself. You know, bunch of different reasons why that contributed to it. But there was no scene lighting inside. It was a vacant row house. It was overnight. It was dark in there. He fell into that hole and died of smoke inhalation. Sad thing is, he wasn't found until 6 hours after crews cleared the scene. He wasn't found until the next morning when people started calling dispatch to report a fire truck blocking traffic. His SUV was blocking traffic. That's the only reason why they knew he was in there. Found him. Could have been prevented with scene lighting inside. Same thing goes for the daylight though. No, it could have been, this one happened in the middle of the night. Vacant row house, you get down into a basement or you get interior, you don't have power, we've killed the power to the building. It gets pretty dark in those houses, even middle of the day. So interior scene lighting, it's important.
Any idea why he wasn't found in the first month?
He went in and he went in and was basically doing, my understanding from reading the line of duty death report, he was basically doing a final walkthrough as crews were clearing the scene. Well, the incident commander cleared the scene and put everybody back in service, terminated the command, and dispatch just put everybody back in service. So they didn't even know that he was even still on scene. Another case, NIOSH 2014-25. Firefighter dies after becoming lost and running out of air in a residential fire. This one was a career female firefighter. She called a mayday at 3:02 in the morning, saying that she was lost and disoriented, separated from her crew. It was in a row house again. It was a row house. She was on Division 1. This Charlie side had a walkout basement that was actually the garage. So she was on first floor from the A side, but there was actually a sub level below her, and that was the garage. She became lost and disoriented, ran out of air throughout the entire NIOSH report, and they do a really good job about listing what each unit's assignments were. There was no mentioning of scene lighting being put up on this fire at all. When they finally found her, she was directly below a window on the Charlie side of the house. More than likely, obviously don't know, wasn't there. She's unfortunately dead. We can't ask her. More than likely, she had no idea she was at a window, ran out of air, and died directly below the kitchen window on the Charlie side of the house. No scene lighting on the back side. She probably had no idea that there was a window there because it was dark. It was dark outside. It was nighttime again. She was found, the mayday was called at 3:02. She was found at 3:15. So in that short of a time. But that was also plenty of time that she could have potentially found that window. There were crews operating on the seaside, so they would have seen her. If she would have found that window, they would have seen her. There were crews operating on the seaside because the crew that actually found her went through the garage on the seaside, went up the stairs and found her. No scene lighting. So what is proper scene lighting? What do we consider as proper scene lighting? Proper scene lighting is lighting up the 6 sides of a house. So the 6 sides are your Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, and Delta, our normal, 4 exterior sides. The top side, or the roof, and then the inside. We need to light up as much of those as possible, as quick as possible. Again, it's just going to help with the overall safety of the fire ground. It's going to help those interior crews find their exits. It's going to help them stay oriented. Can we do this can you guys do this with the lights that are on your truck as the first due? You're by yourself. Can you light up all 6 of those? No?
I do a pretty good job at getting all of them.
Okay. How much do you think you can light up?
3 sides for sure.
3 sides?
I can get 3 sides.
Okay.
And then there would be residual lighting
Mhm.
from that into the backyard probably.
Okay.
I know I can get 3 sides, just depending on how you park. Cause I would park just past the, house, so I would get A and B for sure. And then I can take my quarter lights and get C.
Okay.
And I can get the top, I can get the top of the house.
I'd say you could get 5 of the 6
Yeah.
off of an engine. It may not, you're gonna need to add lighting to it, but you can get lighting on 5 of the 6 sides with what we have on the engine. And at the end of the lecture, we're actually gonna go out and do that. Show you how to do it and how we can get the majority of our structure lit with just the first due unit on scene. So what lights do we actually carry? What lights do we have at our disposal on the engines? Well, we've got our mounted scene lights, those that are on the engine, which are your side lights, your brow light, the telescoping rear lights, and then the command light on the top. You also have your portable scene lights, and you have, again, the box lights. Now, box lights aren't the best, but they'll work in a pinch and they'll work until you get more on scene. Truck. Truck 3, you've got your mounted scene lights, same as what's on the engine with the exception you don't have a command light, but you do have the lights on the tip of the aerial. You've also got the 2 portable scene lights, and you also have your box lights. I'll tell you, the truck is the best way to light up the roof. If you're the driver of the truck, your first due, even if you don't expect to be using that stick, get it up and over the top with those lights on, shining down on. That's gonna let command, that's gonna let you, that's gonna let everybody see what those smoke conditions coming up are, up above the roof line. So get that stick up there, get those lights shining down on the top of the house. Light up that roof. It is the aerial is the best and preferred way to illuminate the roof. Rescue. If you're on the rescue and you're the first due, you're not going to be in the best position to do this. The rescue is not the best for primary scene lighting. The rescue is great for supplementing the scene lighting. Part of the reason why is because on the rescue, you're not taking the numbers and you're not parking right up there in the front. You park out of the way. You don't have water, you don't have hose. You're parking out of the way. So you're pretty much losing all of your mounted scene lightings at that, or your mounted scene lighting at that point. Your portable lights, they're gonna come into play. Like I said, they're great for supplementing. Box lights, again, they're not the best, but they can work as a pinch. You wanna use the lights off the rescue as some supplemental lighting. That's what it's gonna be best suited for. So when you get on scene and you've got your lights set up off of your first due, and you start having more units arrive, use their lights, pull their lights off, add to it. The more light we can put on that house, the brighter we can make that house, the better, and the safer for everybody. Just a quick example of this, we had a fire up in Threes area. This has been several years ago. I was still a firefighter at the time. We had a fire up there. We had been working on the scene for close to an hour. I was on the Charlie side of the house working. About an hour and a half into the incident, we finally thought about getting some scene lighting up on the Charlie side, and we figured out that there was a live down power line on the ground that we had been stepping over the entire time we had been there. Nobody knew it was there. It was kind of tangled up in some trees that had come down with it. So definitely scene lighting, not just for the inside guys, but those of us on the outside. It can make a difference. It makes the scene safer. Luckily, none of us found that down power line. Proper scene lighting, again, it's one of the easiest and most effective ways to increase the overall safety of the scene. And do it during the daylight as well. Set up some scene lighting during the daylight hours. Scene lighting interior. We cut the power to the house, it gets dark in there. Get that interior lit up. It's gonna make it safer. Obviously, fire conditions have to allow for that to happen. We're not gonna put our scene lighting in the front door whenever we've got flames, rolling out on us. But as soon as conditions allow, get that interior lit up. Set up scene lighting on the outside during the day. Even if you don't turn them on, it's good practice for whenever we're running those fires at night. And if you get in the habit of doing it on every fire, you're not gonna forget to do it whenever it's 2 o'clock in the morning and you're just waking up going to a fire. So just get in the habit of doing it. It doesn't hurt anything. It takes an extra 2 minutes to put the scene lighting all back up. It's easy. We've got the cords that reel themselves back in. It's not a lot of work to put them away. Also, if we're running a fire at 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, set up that scene lighting because it's going to get dark eventually, and there's a good chance we're still going to be there working. They're already set up for us. And it's just, if it's not out, if it's not set up, likely we're not going to think about it. So, set it up even during the daylight. It's not going to hurt anything. Any questions on scene lighting? Again, we're going to go out after this. We've got a practical skill to do. We'll go out and actually go over scene lighting. I'll show you how to get, at least 5 of the 6 sides lit up with what we carry on the engine or what we carry on the truck. It is doable. It's not the best, and you're going to want to add lighting, but it's a really good start with what we carry on our rigs. So, any questions on scene lighting? All right, let's take about 15. Come back in, and we'll get through the last part of this. Yeah, come back in at 10:40, please.
Very question. When it comes to like with the backup lights and everything now, we've done. So our fire on Nolting a couple weeks ago, we're at Duke actually, Suzuki Max were rescued, went in with the can. Engine 6 pulled up as they were going in. Didn't understand what was going on because Duke had passed command to them. So they come up talking to me as I was getting ready to pull a line to have ready. And they decided that they were going to pull a line off theirs.
Yeah.
Now, does that transition away from me to them? I still ran around setting all my stuff up, so I had everything staged. But now when it comes to backup line and everything else, does that fall to their deal?
Yes, if you get assigned back to your crew to go do work. If you don't get another assignment, you can still absolutely pull lines off of their rig. Springfield, LR, Republic, all of them. We've trained with all of them. We work fire strong. they have absolutely no problem with us pulling equipment off of their truck and using their apparatus to do stuff. But yes, at that point, their driver has just become the primary DO for the incident. If you're not given another assignment though, you can still go out and do stuff. We worked yesterday, that fire we worked with Springfield, that I was talking about at the beginning of the class, right before the class started. That fire we worked with Springfield, we were second due. Truck 9 was first due, and we were second due to their fire. And Reese didn't pack up, go in. He stayed out as the DO on the engine. Because if it would have turned into be something, more than likely we would have been pumping. Their DO was also out there. So that's actually an awesome situation, because now you have 2 people to do all the work that you normally have 1 person for. And if Springfield's not doing it, and you don't have an assignment as the DO of the first arriving that said they want to pump off their truck, or however it plays out where you're the driver, you're out there, you're not assigned to the crew, you're out there to be a driver and do DO work, start doing this stuff.
It's like with that one, like, I wasn't assigned anything else, so I just kept staging everything that I assumed, and I had 2 ladders set up on the house.
Yeah, absolutely. Do that. Throw ladders, get grit stuff out, set up scene lighting. Now, obviously, if you're assigned back to your crew, then it's going to become that DO's responsibility, or whoever command assigns it to. But the key to this is that the DO can be an active member of the fire ground, and the DO can be that force multiplier to allow us to get more stuff done quicker. So yeah, if you're in the DO position and you're assigned, or you're not given an assignment and you're not assigned to your crew or expected to join back up with your crew, start doing these things. It doesn't matter if you're the pumping one or not. Duke, for example, whenever I first got promoted, I think it was my first shift as a captain or second shift as a captain, we worked a fire, and Mom was pumping it. And Duke, Mom was pumping, they were, engine 4 was first due. We show up, Duke didn't gear up. He was my driver, he didn't gear up. He went over and started doing all of this while Mom was pumping. Because Mom was still kind of new in the driving, and so Duke went over to help him, made sure he was good to go on the pumping side. And then he started doing this, Duke set up the positive pressure fan, threw some ladders, Duke acted as that second, DO, or that additional DO, and started doing a lot of this stuff. So.
I had all that out. I didn't pull saws out because my staging area was right there.
Mm-hmm.
I just let them sit there. But I had the fan out, and as soon as I heard Crump call for ventilation, I fired it up and had it sitting at idle.
Yeah.
And I had the rip bag out, spare bottles, I had all that staged.
Good.
And I pulled my gear out the second I had time. I threw my pants on and my jacket, and then I had my pack just sitting in the staging as well.
Yeah. Yep. So. No, that's doesn't happen often, but on occasion it does, where you're not the primary DO, but you're still doing DO work. You don't really have an assignment. So yeah, if you're seeing that this stuff isn't getting done, there's absolutely nothing wrong with you jumping in and doing it. The key is though, it's like I said at the beginning of the class, the key is this needs to be trained on. It needs to be the expectation that this stuff is going to get done by the DO. And unfortunately, we can't dictate what Springfield's DOs are or are not going to do on a fire scene. We can't dictate what Republic's going to do, what Nixon's going to do, what Ozark's going to do. We can't dictate what any of our auto aid agencies are going to do if they end up being that primary DO. But we can absolutely control what we're going to do, and we can absolutely do it on our fires and even on their fires. But the key is we have to train on it. We went down to Nixa a little while ago for a fire, and it was actually Gertie's sister's house. When we were assigned RIT, I did my 360, found that the back door was locked. We're gonna force that door. We're gonna soften the structure, force that door, make sure it's good to go in case we have a RIT activation and need an exit, or in case they have a mayday and need to exit, that door's unlocked. So we went on ahead and forced the door. I didn't ask Nixa for permission to do it. We did it. That's what we do. That's what we're trained to do. Afterwards, I went up and I told the battalion chief, this is the battalion that was working command, hey, we forced that back door to soften up the structure some. They were fine with it, had absolutely no problem with it, but we weren't assigned to throw ladders. We threw ladders as the RIT team though. There's a crew on the roof doing vertical vent. They had a single ladder up, so I pulled one of the ladders off, took it around to the Charlie side, and threw that ladder on the Charlie side so that they had a second means of egress off the roof. Wasn't asked to do it, that's just how we trained, so that's what we did. But that's the key, is it needs to be trained on. If it's not trained on, then it's just freelancing, because nobody has a clue what you're doing.
I will say I like the lighting up from the tip of the ladder. I never thought of that one.
Yeah, using those
And that would
two
have
lights on
been,
the tip of the ladder.
that would have been extremely handy that night, because all victims were at the back of the house with no light for that.
Yep. So, yeah, using the tip of the ladder to, be light shining down on that roof. It's not only lighting up your roof, but it's gonna light up, around the house too. So yeah, I really like the idea of using the lights on the tip of the ladder. We have them there. Let's use them. I don't understand the mindset of, well, we don't need the ladder, so we're not going to put it up. It's another tool in our toolbox. Let's use it.
I had it fully set, ready to go. I just
Yeah.
went up there and moved it.
Yeah, get it up there. Get those lights shining down on the top. Light up. We can see what the smoke conditions are doing. Have a better view of what the roof is doing. We start seeing some sagging in the roof, whatever. It's just going to make it a safer scene the more lighting we can put on it, especially at night. So.
My opinion, that first DO is one that sets the tempo for that fire.
Absolutely. That first arriving crew, and especially that first arriving DO, can absolutely set the mood and the tempo for how that fire is going to go. That is a position that you can absolutely make or break a fire. So.
Do that.
Tired.
Almost didn't go in today because I'm feeling good, but it's like I'm really not feeling bad enough to really stay home. I'm not quite feeling good enough to want to be here. I'm feeling okay enough to be here, but it doesn't be home. That's the problem. Once we get done with this, we get back to the station. There's no reason. Emergency, take some
Get some more coffee.
Yeah, we're talking.
Oh.
Wait. Here we go. Oh, dude, there's that. See that?
The camera being retarded completely ruined my day. I had about 30 other things I was gonna do today, but it's alright. Having some fun with you guys.
Dude, they do that this week.
Oh, where'd you get the material for this stuff?
Bang, I created all of this.
Really?
That is what instructor 2 is. You create a class from nothing.
Okay, so it's not going for something, it's creating something.
Yes.
Huh.
So,
Pretty cool.
the student manuals, the instructor guides, the lesson plans, the PowerPoint, everything I had to create.
Benadryl was what I was trying to tell you.
Yeah.
Took a bunch of Benadryl. But I haven't taken it today, so I'm afraid if I took it today.
12
I'd have
weeks.
the truck going down the road, just go.
12 weeks of this. But I will say this is a lot better than the 40-hour seated class.
Yeah.
Yeah, because each week of class, because I did the online, the blended, we had 1 day of class, and then everything else is online, but for the most part, it's an online class. Each week, your assignment was building a portion of this, so it was like, you know, week 1 was the objectives, week 2 was, you know, the reference material, your research and reference material. And I don't remember if that's the actual order that was in, but each week you build a piece of the class. So at the end of it, at the end of week 12, your class is completely built and all you have to do is present it.
They want fire related, or doesn't matter?
Yeah, it's fine.
So I start to want to have people do like, here's how I make it.
Yeah, no, it's a fire class, so. Yeah, for instructor 2, you start with nothing and create a complete class on your own, so. We ain't gonna have Kindle, but we'll go on ahead and get started. So, during the break, I was asked a really good question, that you guys can all kind of hear. So, on occasion, you know, you show up, you're the first arriving DO, whatever happens, and it actually ends up being the next unit that arrives that pumps the fire, whether, for this example, it was your Nulting fire, where the first arriving unit ended up being Surge. It was an all-hands rescue. You weren't pulling the lines, you weren't doing anything. You had 2 confirmed victims tracked, and it was an all-hands rescue. So Springfield showed up, and they ended up being the pumping apparatus and the pumping DO. So as the driver of that first due, are you still responsible for doing this? Well, the question is yes, or the answer is yes and no. It depends on what you're assigned. If you're assigned to join back up with your crew, then no, it goes to whoever that primary DO is that's pumping the fire. If you're not, if you're not given another assignment, yeah, absolutely do this stuff. Now we have 2 DOs to do the job of 1. Great. You know, if you're not given another assignment, you know that this stuff is expected because it's been trained on as a crew or as a shift. Absolutely, going ahead and start pulling backup lines, throwing ladders, setting up your RIT stuff, setting up your scene lighting. So, just because you're not the primary pumping DO doesn't mean that you can't do this stuff. This is just for those this is just so that primary pumping DO can be an active member of the fire scene. And it's, you know, Levi said that first DO sets the tempo for the scene, and that's absolutely true. If you're out there knocking stuff out as that first arriving DO, that's gonna set the tempo and the pace for the entire rest of the scene. You're in a critical spot right there.
It's our turn now.
Madison Rescue 3, medical emergency, 2362 South Pennsylvania Avenue.
Speaking of Nolte,
I'm left Nolting, I brought it up and now y'all are going on it. You know, I've kind of gone through so far, I've kind of really gone through some of this stuff a lot faster than I normally would. So if I've gone over anything too fast, please let me know. We can go back and touch on it again. But based off of the experience level of everybody in this class, there's not a need for me to really dive as deep into some of this stuff. So if I've covered anything too quick for you, let me know. Tell me, we can go back over and touch on it again. I have no problem with that. I've kind of broke away from the lesson plan and some of the stuff that's in there because it's, you know, stuff you guys already know. Everybody in here has experience. And everybody in here's got a decent amount of experience, whether it's with this organization or others. So I have kind of deviated from the lesson plan just a hair on that, but just if I've covered anything too quick, let me know, and I'll go over it in a little more detail with you and with everybody. But moving on to our last and final objective, almost done with the classroom portion. So, objective 5. Name 3 times ground ladders should be deployed on residential structure fires. So why ground ladders? Why are we going to talk about ground ladders and why are they important? It's like I said earlier, the vast majority of rescues are made from ground ladders. They're not made from aerials, they're not made from guys on the inside, they're made from ground ladders on the exterior of the structure. And to give you an example of this, Colorado Springs Fire Department was dispatched to a multi-story apartment building with a report of a fire on January 16th of 2007. 3 minutes after the initial dispatch, the fire district chief arrived on scene and immediately requested a second and third alarm because he encountered dozens of occupants trapped on balconies and windows. 85 occupants were rescued during that fire. Anybody want to take a guess how many of them were rescued from ground ladders and how many of them were rescued from an aerial? 85 total rescues. 70 ground ladders, the majority ground ladders. Anybody else want to take a guess?
Oh,
Yep, Nate got it. Every single one of them was rescued from a ground ladder. There was not a single rescue made from any of the aerial devices on scene.
Because they couldn't get up to the building.
85 occupants, all of them rescued by ground ladders. The vast majority of rescues are made from ground ladders. Following that incident, Colorado Springs actually did a study over a 3-month period on how many rescues they make from ground ladders versus aerial devices or ground ladders versus interior rescues. And don't quote me on this, but I believe it was something like 94% of all their rescues were made from ground ladders. And that's the trend across the nation. The vast majority of rescues are made off of ground ladders. So getting them in place and getting them in place early is crucial. So when do you want to actually deploy ground ladders? Anytime you have crews working on a roof, you want ground ladders deployed, obviously. Anytime you're working a multi-story structure. If you have any walkout basements. And then this last one, if you have any windows that are greater than 10 feet off the ground. So think of some of our areas around here where we have the sloped yards. It's a 1-story house, they don't have a walkout basement, but you get around to the back side and your seaside windows are 15, 20 feet off the ground. You're gonna want a ground ladder there. 10, 12 feet. Think about falling out of a window or bailing out of a window that's 12 feet off the ground with full gear and a pack on.
Yep.
That's gonna hurt when you land. It's gonna hurt a lot when you land. So if you have any windows over 10 feet off the ground, throw a ladder there. It's not gonna hurt anything, throw it. Any other times you can think of that you would wanna throw ground ladders? Anything that I missed?
Same as the 10 feet over, but instead of basements, you got the tall cross spaces.
Yeah?
You got a bunch of, the golf course, like.
Yep. River Cut, you've got some pretty deep crawl spaces where, you know, you climb in and it's a 10 feet drop down to the bottom of the crawl space. If you're gonna have to go in there, you're gonna want a ground ladder.
The weird custom homes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely have to worry about some, weird layouts on some custom homes around here. So as the first arriving driver, you've got, if you're on the engine, you have 2 ground ladders. You've got your roof ladder and you've got your extension ladder. Throw them both. You're gonna want them on 2 different sides of the structure. Typically, we end up doing like the Alpha side and the Charlie side.
Several of the homes across from Station 4 are single story in the front and 3-story in the back.
Yep, we've got some of them just over on the other side of FF here that are single story on the front and 3-story on the back. There's one of them, and I don't remember what road it's on. It's actually single story on the front and 4-story on the back. It's got a walkout basement, or it's got a first floor, a basement, a walkout basement below that, and then the John Deere room is actually below the walkout basement.
Where's that?
I believe it was over here. I believe we found it over here across FF back in here.
Went on a little plot of land.
Yeah, it's single story on the front. If you look at it from the front, you don't expect to find what you're gonna find whenever you walk around to the back. So throw those ladders, as the first arriving DO, throw those ladders, throw both of them that you have on opposite sides of the house. So Alpha and Charlie side, or the Bravo and Delta side, whatever you're getting access to. But you wanna get them thrown, and you wanna get them thrown on opposite sides of the house. Once you have them put up, advise command that you have them and where you have them. And that's more so that the interior crews can hear it than for command, but it does let command know that ladders are already thrown, or at least a couple ladders are thrown. And then advise command if there's any specific spot where you know that they're gonna need additional ladders. Those ones on, over here and in River Cut, where it's single story on the front, 3-story on the back. Well, you can throw a ladder on the front and throw a ladder on the back. Still need additional ladders on the back because you have multiple floors that you need to ladder. We're 2-story on the front, 3, 4 stories on the back. So let command know that you're gonna need additional ladders, or where you need additional ladders. Again, that just lets the interior crews hear where their ladders are in case they need to make a quick exit. As additional units arrive, as additional engine companies arrive, the truck company arrives, whatever, yank their ladders, throw them too. Ideally, you want a ladder on every side of the house, on every floor of the house. Kind of already gone over this, but, you know, reiterate, you want, where are we gonna throw them? You want, the first 2 ladders off the truck, or off the engine, you wanna have thrown on opposite sides of the house. That just gives the interior crews 2 options on where they're gonna bail out from if they need to. If you have more than one above grade floor, you want a ladder to each floor. And again, ideally, every floor, every side of the house should have ladders thrown. If you have crews working on the roof, you want 2 opposite sides of the roof. You want ladders to 2 opposite sides of the roof. That way, if they're up there, roof starts sagging, they can't make it back to their ladder, whatever happens, they have an alternative means of egress off that roof. Again, if you have the ladders on scene, put one on each side of the house. It doesn't matter, 4 ladders up there, great. I've got 4 different options on how I'm gonna bail out of here if I need to. I promise the guys on the roof will appreciate it. And it's not that much, it's not real hard for you to, throw a ladder. It doesn't take any time at all. So that pretty much wraps up the classroom portion of it. So we're always short-staffed. At the end of the day, we are always short-staffed, and unfortunately, we're probably always going to be short-staffed, at least in this area of the country. It sucks, but it's what we're working with. As the DO, you can make or break the fire scene. You can absolutely set the tempo of the fire scene off of your actions and what you decide to do. Don't just stare at your pump. Don't just stand there with your back towards the fire. Be an active member of the scene. Think ahead, anticipate the needs of the scene, and stay ahead of the game on what's going on. And train on this stuff. You absolutely have to train on this stuff. Because if you don't train on it, you're not going to do it whenever you need to. You're not going to do it whenever it counts. What we've covered, the 5 objectives that we covered, name the 3 most common hostile fire events for residential fires. We talked about that at the beginning. What are the 3 most common?
Flashover, rapid fire growth.
Vent point ignition? Okay, rapid fire spread, vent point ignition, flashover. 3 most common. Determine which size hose line to use as a backup line for a variety of fire situations. What were those 3 additional lines that we had talked about during that? DO line, exposure line, and backup line. What's the minimum size of the backup line should be? Same as the primary attack line. Awesome. Students shall predict which tools could be required for a variety of brick situations. We discussed that. We discussed the common tools and the uncommon tools, and just why it's good for that first DO to start pulling out some of those uncommon tools. Rick probably won't think about it, unfortunately, and if it's not there, it's not visible, it probably isn't going to be thought of and used. Be able to demonstrate setting up proper scene lighting using the equipment found on their assigned apparatus to ensure that all sides are illuminated. We're going to go over that some more. I'll show you how you can get at least 5 sides of the house lit up with what we carry on our apparatus. It's not going to be the best, but it's some light. It's a good start, and then you just add to it as you get additional units on scene with more scene lighting. You start supplementing it. Which one did I say was the best for lighting up the roof? Aerial. And then name 3 times ground ladders should be deployed on a residential structure fire. What's three of the times?
Roof work.
Multi-story roof work.
Windows higher than 10 feet.
Windows higher than 10 feet. Okay. So kind of gone over a lot. We went over it really fast. But there's absolutely value in this information. Again, as that first arriving DO, you have the ability to make or break the scene. This was focused towards that DO position, but as a firefighter that's not really responsible for driving it, Owens, not singling you out, but you're the only one that's in here that's not really driving it. This information can be applied to your position as well. You now know what is going to be expected of the DO. You know what's going to be expected of you whenever you start getting into that position. Company officers, this stuff has to be trained on. You've got to get out and train on it, and this is an easy way for you to train your guys to be more effective members of the fireground, make the fireground safer, make overall operations easier, so that we can all get back to our recliners watching TV, right? I mean, I know you're 80 if you guys live in them, but yeah, I know, you can meet later. Again, this isn't freelancing, this is not freelancing at all. This is you as drivers being able to make independent decisions and tactical decisions to help better the scene. But the key is you got to get out and train on it. You have to go out and train on this stuff. If you don't do it in training, if you don't train on it, you're not gonna do it on the fire ground whenever it comes down to it. And I highly recommend that you go out and you learn more about the stuff that we discussed. Learn more about your ground lighters, learn more about scene lighting, learn more about reading smoke and reading buildings and fire behavior, fire dynamics. The more tools you have in the toolbox, the better you're gonna be. And in this instance, the toolbox is your brain. More stuff you have up there, the safer you're gonna be and the better you're gonna be. So again, kind of went through this a little quick. Does anybody have any questions? No questions? All right. So what we are going to do now is you guys want to do the practical first or the test first? We'll do the test first. All right. No, we'll do the test now while it's all still fresh on your mind. Give you about 30 minutes to complete this. There are questions on the back. It is two-sided. Instructions are on there. Please just write your name, date at the top. And I have, let's see, I think I've got an extra right here. It is now 2020.
I have it.
Steal this one, go make a copy real quick. Came up one copy short. Shame on me. Sorry about that.
Never really gives the answer to the truth.
I didn't know Gene was part of this.
Yeah.
What?
Multiple choice, right way. Great time of day.
Nice.
It would be a true fire exam, I thought, at least one time.
Gotta love autocorrect.
Yeah. Apparently, Bert says you're type. Wish we were mentioning his name.
Yeah.
All right, everybody done? Anybody still working? All right. I will take those, read them real quick, and we'll discuss them. If you want to take just a quick break, shouldn't take me long at all.
If you fail, you stop getting paid for this issue.
The rest of the shit. Very,
Your grandfather.
very big nap.
But
Wait,
it's
you're
broken.
supposed to be getting paid?
What? I was full-time volunteer.
Crazy. Yeah, you get B on your 80% paycheck. That's how Birdie's paid.
Bernie's thing, he's doing this for free. This is the volunteer portion of our fire department right here. You know, the one they're always talking about? Kind of bugs me, I don't know if it bugs anybody else, it bugs the shit out of me.
What?
When the board calls us their volunteer fire department. It bugs the living shit out of me. It's not. And it hasn't been
They
forever.
would take it off.
Why don't they?
Until they do, they take it off. Keeps us within that program.
Yeah, they get extra, like,
Yeah, that's really organized.
Tax
They
write-off.
probably get everything on it.
That's more like it.
like on and.
Yep.
That's probably
There's
more like it.
benefits in county. It's all about the vigilance.
That's a movie,
Yeah,
not a
well,
movie.
there's
Sorry.
5,000 just sitting there for nothing.
Must be a movie.
There
Why
must be
make it
names.
jump, yo? That's a good
It's
movie.
just every Ice Cube movie ever
Yeah.
rolled into that movie. All about the Benjamins and the Friday movies are kind of the same thing.
Friday looks fun.
Friday, all of
That's
them.
fun.
I do like what's the movie where he's like the captain of the police force?
21 Jump Street?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
right.
right.
Yeah.
That's not really an Ice Cube movie, but
No.
it's a different movie that Ice Cube's in.
Yeah. Yeah. That's funny.
Unbelievable.
He actually does stuff though in 22 Jump Street.
I just like the one where he goes to the other.
say the best part though was when they were back there, he's like, glad he was doing it hotter.
Yeah.
It's funny.
They switched up the glasses, was like, is that cool, the shape and everything?
Yeah. You wanna say who are you? Yeah.
My name is Jeff.
I like when they take that one thing and starts kicking it, when you're talking to the teacher, he's like, you're talking about it.
Yeah, dude, I saw that last night. That's incredible.
Back out, yeah, look at that.
That's on ESPN. Behind the back pager.
So he's full of shit. Oh, man.
Did that win the game?
Oh,
Did they die?
snap.
Did that win the game where they died? Or was it just like,
No, he was just trying to, I think, pass the ball or something. His part, his team.
no, he was trying to make it, he knew he was you don't do that on film, you get it on it.
This kid makes a ridiculous behind the back three-pointer on accident.
It's not, it was,
You're still
No, he's trying to behind that.
dude, he plays Fortnite with him.
Right now, the kid has open leg. It's collapsed. That's what he is, he going out. He's like, ow! Kid totally bites it, leg up. Allows him to score one game.
Or that's my first money ever. I shouldn't say that. Look at this cheese.
It's like my hand back like this.
Oh, sorry, Gene.
Almost done.
Alright, that's back.
Alright, so just go over this real quick, once I figure out what I did with my copy of it up here, there it is. So, most common hostile fire events, which one of the following is one of the three most common hostile fire events? C, event point ignition. Which of the following is the most common hostile fire event? Flashover. Which of the following is the last side of the structure to be illuminated?
The inside.
The inside, yep, so that, it's when conditions allow. So,
Yeah, you did say that.
what's that?
Don't break rule number one.
Yeah. Which apparatus is best suited for illuminating the roof? Yeah, truck. Which of the following, or gotta match the following: inch and 3/4 hose, it's appropriate backup line for a room and contents fire. 2.5, appropriate line for a 5,000 square foot warehouse. Remember I said big structure, big fire, or deep seated fire, you want 2.5. Minimum of 2 ground ladders for egress from the second story of a structure. Ground ladders should be deployed anytime crews are working
On the roof?
roof,
Multi-story.
yep, above grade floors or multi-story, or blank are suspected on above grade floors. I didn't really discuss that, but if victims are suspected on above grade floors, you're gonna wanna do that. Most important item to have staged for RIP deployment, RIP bag. And then, while not commonly thought of on structure fires, what is a great tool to have ready? It's the airbags. So, yeah, I need those back. Have to. Do I have all of them?
Where is there? So I wrote.
All right, we will move outside to do the scene lighting. I would like an engine and the truck parked in front of headquarters. We'll just use headquarters as our building till the.
Truck's not
We
good.
don't have a truck.
We don't have a truck. Okay, the engine. We don't have the truck here. I forgot you guys are on the rescue, not the truck. So just the engine. Just need an engine parked in front of headquarters. I don't care which one. Is it parked out here in front?
No.
Or is it parked up on the side?
It's out there.
Okay. All right.
We'll get it parked out there.
Sounds good.
Sir, yes, sir.
Cookie in your pocket?
You need your, class packs back?
Nope, those are your seat.
Oh, boy.
Class packs.
Class pack.
What about class packs?
No.
No.
Monty makes you see.
When did they get those out?
Whoa.
What's up with this?
Huh?
That's the thing, it's just an energy drink, one pipe. It's a gamble.
I don't know.
Nate, you're leaving trash, man. Where's your lid to your cup?
Oh, shoot.
Where's your lid? Literally, man.
I did.
Where'd you get that?
Gas station.
Gas station?
They got an orange one. It's an orange red. No, it's just a regular live wire.
Beat you with a tap or get surge. I can get on Scott. Text code.
I also found for a slideshow yesterday. I'm like, that's not correct.
That's why it's nice to give it to somebody else and let them play with it.
One thing is, I did.
We're not very good at it.
No.
I don't know who it was. They're not very good at it.
Good to go now? All right. So for the practical skill portion of this, all we're going to do is we're going to set up scene lighting. We're going to treat headquarters as if it's a building that's on fire and pretend that it's not, middle of the day, and we're going to set up scene lighting. So the skill sheet calls for proper and safe movement of equipment. Basically, just don't tear up the equipment, don't get hurt moving it. If you're lifting anything heavy, which our scene lights really aren't heavy, so don't have to worry about that. Correct startup procedures of the generators and the power equipment. The truck will be running. It's not right now, so that I don't have to yell over it, but the truck will be running. All you'll have to do is start the PTO generator on it. Everybody knows how to do that. It's just the flip of a switch. If you guys want to come up here, I'll show you where it is on this truck. Make sure that everybody knows.
Don't tear my truck. I do not want to trade into a reserve piece of junk. Well, it's not junk, it's just, I don't want to do it.
So truck will already be running. All you have to do is come up in here and flip this switch right here to the right of the steering wheel up. That turns that on. For your mounted scene lights, your switches are over here on the center console. You'll turn on whichever mounted scene lights you want. In this instance, I would recommend the right side scene lights and the rear telescoping lights. Once the generator is going and those lights are on, you're going to pull the scene lights out of this rear compartment. Along with your electrical box. You're going to take those around to the rear of the structure on this one in order to get the 5 sides. My recommendation is you have your cab lights, your right side scene lights, that's gonna illuminate down that Bravo side. I would use your rear telescoping lights to illuminate this Alpha side. Your command light you can use to kind of illuminate the Alpha side and the roof. It's gonna light up quite a bit, so you'll be able to get those. And then with these scene lights, you're gonna take both scene lights, this yellow extension cord, and your box around to the Charlie Delta corner. You'll set one scene light up, connected straight into the box on the Delta side, because that's probably going to be about as far as that cord's going to reach off the truck. Plug your extension cord into your box, take the other one around to the Charlie side. Doing so, you will be able to get 5 sides of this building lit up. It's not going to be the best. You'll need to add supplemental lighting as more apparatus arrive, but you'll still be able to get at least 5 sides of this building lit up. And then obviously once we had the lighting and conditions allowed, we would go on ahead and start lighting up the interior of it. So the skill sheet calls for the proper and safe movement of the equipment, correct startup procedures of generator and power equipment, correct use of the extension cords, cord reels, or other remote power systems, and illumination of all 6 sides of simulated scene. Minimum of 4 required to pass. So, show you how it will be done. I will actually go through it and do it once, and then we'll get everybody else through it. Fair enough? So again, truck will be started. Come up.
Clear on the left.
Turn your generator on. Turn the officer side and your rear scene lights on. Set your telescope and your rear scene lights up however you need them. Goal is to get the majority of that A side lit up.
So really, cool. So you're just going to be really lighting up. Man, I was going to make 2 trips out of that. Cool.
Take this, you'll walk with. Big building, hopefully we have enough.
Have you done this one before yet?
What's that?
Have
Not
you?
on this building.
Okay. Did you even get this far with C-Shift?
Nope. Weather conditions didn't really permit us to be out here.
You still got it. You still got it.
Yeah. Be able to get this. Set your first scene light up here on the Delta side. Wrong plug.
And
And then, depending on how much your, how much hose reel or how much of your reel you have left, it would be better if you could bring that light further over, but we ran out. But even with this, if it was night, we'd be able to have lighting on this Charlie side now. So, position them. So now we've got these all done. Go back to the truck, set your command light up.
Like that. Lord.
So with the command light, your control's right here. Have the two switches to make it go up.
You always have to, just look over yourself. Look over yourself.
Yep, there we go. That's setting it up. You've now got command light's going to be lighting up the roof and the A side pretty well. You've got some light on the C side. It's not the best, but it's a good start. As additional units arrive, you can use the lighting off of their truck to add to it, supplement. Any questions on that? Alright, we'll get it tore down and we'll start doing some rotations through, get everything set up. Turn up.
Yes, sir.
Alright. In between, if we want to help each other get it all broke down and put up, that'd be help make it go faster. I'll take that back now. All right, go.
Just for reference, watch that going in. It does not feed nicely. I kind of figured that would feed a little nicer than it does.
That's what I like about the truck. The
one that's hanging in there is mine. The one that's hanging, the bag that's hanging on the ground. There it is.
All right, who'd like to go first? What are you going after?
He's checking that reel. He's checking.
Oh, checking the rail, make sure it's fine. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, go ahead, John.
Yeah, I also would consider emergency lights somewhat sing lights. I mean, it's additional.
Yeah.
I just know that you better know what I mean. Sometimes on
Yeah,
fire
it
scene,
helps.
those lights like going on, I can see
Yep.
so every time the rotators go around. Like I would turn, personally, I would turn everything on.
Oh yeah, turn them
You can't,
on. You can never have too much lighting.
that's what I'm thinking.
Turn all the lights on.
All over. Turn on all the lights. Just an individual thing, or can I help you?
Individual.
Sorry, John. You're fine. I got it. Kinda.
Kinda. Don't trip over the cord.
Yeah. Well, that would be bad.
Didn't hear what?
Okay, good.
Alright. Alright, good job. Bring it down. Do it all over again.
Chop it up.
in charge of the camera for a minute.
Sounds good.
I'm gonna bring my car over here, park it, and just set the camera on top of the car.
That's a good idea. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, I can plug it in this way too now. Oh, come on, quit falling over.
Generator off.
It's still on. Hank. Yeah, we're still recording. We're still good. If this thing shuts off again, I'm gonna get angry.
I just see the red light and I was like, oh.
Yeah, no, it's still on.
Okay, so they have different breeds of. Alright, so they're little big guys.
Yeah, no, we're good. Hey, Chase, if you guys want to put your gear up and then meet back in the classroom, we'll do eval, some final words, and get out of here.
Yeah, sounds good.
Go eat some lunch. I don't know if these front doors are open. Haha, they are good. Very good, very, very good. Oh, I wasn't done in here. They turned off all my lights. Gotta leave that stupid camera recording because at this point I'm afraid it won't start again. The trouble I've had with it. I do need my keys though, because I took the evaluations out of my car with the rest of the paperwork. I forgot I had to come back in here and do them.
You take your lady to Landing and try that salt steak, salt grass steakhouse.
I'll have to try that sometime.
Freaking badass.
I had a pen earlier, I don't have a pen now.
I have no previous knowledge of your pen.
I'm ready for nap.
I am so past being ready for that.
Yeah.
But it ain't ready for me yet.
No, apparently not.
My face is cold.
There's a bug that will like burn.
Fit tested our way.
On and then come out of this kid. That's
Yeah.
Is that your dad? Yeah, I saw that. My grandma. It says, we all know this is my dad right here.
Yeah.
And I saw the other pull out, it ends up being like, it's like pulsing when they pull it out. It's like, yep. Is this your dad? Yeah. Arby?
Yeah.
Hey, get out of my seat, bro.
What is the beard?
Get out of my seat, bro.
Somehow it's in your butt.
Get your herpes out of
It
here.
ends up getting inflamed and they end up dropping cream on it. You just see it like trying to breathe. It's just this tiny hole. And then they end up pushing on this cream, makes it like come out, like suffocates it or something.
Is this something real? Or
I
you
came in
making it up?
halfway, I'm either thinking a sea cucumber or a vagina.
This is video.
Oh, what?
It shows like pulsing.
You mean the camera? Phone?
That's horrible. Turn around, bro.
Oh, it's some kind of fly.
Is it a real thing?
Yeah. Oh, botfly.
That's what it is. I'll have to show you one.
You ever seen a botfly be removed?
They're awesome.
It's like a giant pimple, but a living thing.
Botfly removal is great.
No big deal.
It's real.
ABD.
That grossed me out. Just thinking about that grossed me out.
Wait till you see the video.
I
Yeah,
wanna
it's
see
good.
the
You
video.
should see the
I'll
video.
cast it on
It's
TV.
driven from medical research.
Do it.
All right, guys.
Everybody,
These are the course and instructor evaluations. Please be honest on them. I don't know what I need to change or please fill them out. I have to have one for everybody, so fill it out.
Why is there not a strong lead? You're not.
This is a custom done.
If you have any comments, there's room on the back for comments. There's also a section on the back that needs filled out as well.
This guy has no freaking idea. I'm not gonna feel, that would be like that.
There wasn't a 4.
5X just means fat.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. No, like
4X is like huge.
All right,
Shit, John Cage heard talking.
all right, guys, I appreciate your time this morning. I hope everybody learned at least something or can take away something from this class. I appreciate your effort during the practical skills. If you will, just leave the course evaluations, or if you want to stack them up here, bring them up here on your way out the door. That'd be great. Thanks for the time. Remember, none of this matters if we don't go out and train on it.
Right.
So, need to train on this stuff, keep it fresh, keep the ideas up. I do not need your skill sheets. I do not need those. That was not for grade or pass fail or anything. It was just a skill to complete. Just to show you guys how you can actually get the maximum amount of scene lighting on a house or on a structure during a fire. Y'all did great. Thank you for your attention. Have a good day. Be safe out there.
We started off in my birthday.
Thanks, man.
Butt play time.
Butt play time.
No, I ain't watching.
That's butt play.
Okay.
Here, butt play video.
You're not gonna throw up or nothing.
Remember that
We had a G, I believe, it was less than we're at.
You want to try it, Dean?
G wants to try it.
I wanna see if it's the same.
I wanna wait until we have lunch and get it over.